to a League of Women Voters Greater Hartford candidate debate. I am Libby Swietek, a member of the League of Women Voters Greater Hartford, and will serve as a moderator of this debate for the 18th Assembly District of Connecticut. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization which encourages informed and active participation by citizens in government. We are pleased to bring you this debate in cooperation with West Hartford Community Television. This debate will be conducted in a modified cumulative time format. Each candidate will have 10 minutes to answer and rebut questions of interest to this legislative seat. The questions were formulated in advance by League members, and we have League members on hand to help the candidates manage their time. The order of precedence for speaking was predetermined. This will also hold true for closing statements. It is my pleasure to introduce the candidates who have committed their time and energies to run for this important seat. To my left, we have Mary Fay, running as a Republican candidate, and Jillian Gilchrest, running as a Democrat. Mary Fay is a resident of West Hartford, has been a resident of West Hartford for 16 years, is a candidate for state representative for the Connecticut District 18th. Mary is a town councilor in West Hartford. She has spent her career as a financial services senior executive. She has held several senior business leadership roles, including Senior Vice President and General Manager of Sun Life Financial, where she also chaired diversity and inclusion employee resource groups and served on Sun Life boards. Mary graduated from Skidmore College and earned an MBA from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. Active in her community, Mary was appointed to the West Hartford Library Board, is a frequent volunteer at Morley School, and is active in Save Our Water. She also serves on the Board of Overseers for Newton Wesley Hospital and was named a Top Women in Business by Hartford Business Journal. Mary is married to Mary Smith, and they have an 8-year-old daughter, Katie. Jillian Gilchrest is the Director of Health Professional Outreach for the Connecticut Coalition Against Domestic Violence. A graduate of the University of Connecticut School of Social Work, Jillian has extensive experience advocating for women's health and safety, in particular influencing public policy. She currently chairs the state's Trafficking in Persons Council for the Connecticut General Assembly, and has formerly served as an elective member on the West Hartford Board of Education. Jillian is an adjunct faculty member at the University of Connecticut School of Social Work, where she teaches political advocacy and macro foundation practice. She has 2 happy children who attend Morley Elementary School. Welcome to you both. Let's start the questions. The Connecticut deficit. Connecticut deficit is in every news cycle in the state for the last, recent memory. Our state's budget includes a large percentage of mandatory payments for debt service and ongoing pensions, leaving fewer and fewer options to balance the budget. Which reductions in spending or revenue increases would you support or oppose? Please be specific. Mary has the first answer.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you all in the audience for coming. This feels very familiar to me. I'm right at home, as I was here last night at a town council meeting. I think I'm actually sitting in Mayor Cantor's seat. Hopefully she won't be too upset about that. That's all you read about in Connecticut, quite frankly, and it's a lovely state, but we have huge financial issues. They are the largest of any state, and I don't know about you guys, but I am very sick and tired of seeing us at the bottom of every financial metric. Our economy has shrunk, people are not working, companies have left, and residents are leaving. They're fleeing, in fact. I mean, we lead on that metric, too, of people and businesses leaving the state. It's very severe, and I honestly do not know if the voters appreciate the severity of our financial death spiral. I've never seen anything like it, and I've run financial services companies for 30 years. So I will not increase taxes. We are taxed to death. We have the highest taxes of any state in this country, and that's one of the reasons that people are leaving. We do not have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. And we also are misguided on our priorities. We're not spending on things that we need to, like roads and infrastructure. I'm going to just put the elephant that's in the room that nobody wants to talk about. 31% of our budget goes to debt, funding of debt, and state employee benefits and pensions. Now, I'm not a rogue that wants to take away benefits. I actually want to make sure that people receive the benefits they were promised. And right now, there's a slim chance of that because we're basically insolvent. So I have the experience. I think experience matters in this case. I am an accountant. I have an MBA in finance. I have run health insurance businesses, which is a problem here. I have run pension businesses, which is a problem here. And I've helped revamp a very large organization that was on the brink of insolvency by restructuring employee benefits and pensions. And that's why I think I should be your next state rep. Thank you.
Thank you. Jillian.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me today. The number one reason I decided to run for state representative is because I felt like the Democratic Party wasn't taking enough action to address Connecticut's budget issues. And so, first and foremost, we need to get our budget under control. I think that we can find efficiencies both at the state and local level. So when it comes to public education, which is a top priority, currently there are 10 different funding streams in the state of Connecticut. And so we need to consolidate those, streamline those, and there could be cost savings there. And actually, if we were able to do that, West Hartford would benefit. We would actually do better. Additionally, I think any new revenues that come into the state, if we are to legalize marijuana or to legalize sports gambling, needs to go directly to paying off our state debt. Because as we have mentioned, our fixed costs are the largest part of our state budget. We also need to invest in Connecticut going forward. And so we need to invest in policies like paid family and medical leave, which is proven to bring millennials to this state. Millennials will move places because of that policy. Additionally, that policy can support small businesses who can't afford to give that benefit to their workers. And so those are some of the ideas I have of how to move our state forward.
Any rebuttal?
Yes, thank you very much. I touched on the big picture. I touched on the things that are really going to move the dial. No offense meant to my opponent here, but when is legalizing drugs, when is promoting gambling, and when is tolls, another tax on people here, a good thing for anybody? Really, gambling, come on, we've got casinos everywhere. We've got the lottery, and where has that money gone? It hasn't gone into furthering Connecticut's infrastructure or gone into education like it was supposed to. We've actually, since we started the income tax and these other programs, these fringe programs, I'll call them, like the lottery, like gambling, now legalizing pot, where's the money? We have nothing to speak of it. In fact, our economy has shrunk and we're doing worse, and we have huge budget deficits approaching $5 billion over the biennium. They're gigantic, and these little things that are going to add a couple $100 million here and a couple $100 million here, I'm sorry, but it's like bailing out the Titanic with a teaspoon. That's not going to bring us home and make Connecticut back to the prosperous state that it needs to be, and it should be, and it was. That's what I'm focused on, and that's what I will do as your state rep.
Thank you. Jillian? Any other comments?
So both legalizing marijuana and legalizing sports gambling are conversations that have been happening in this state for a few years now, and the states surrounding us are already doing it. So I don't want to leave any money on the table. And if we are going to be moving forward with those policies, I think Connecticut needs to move quickly so that we can bring that revenue into this state. My opponent and the Republican Party are quick to say, let's cut taxes. But unlike the federal government, we actually have to balance our budget. And so we need plans out of their party to understand how they're going to do these tax cuts without cutting the vital services that are important to people in West Hartford.
Okay, thank you. Further on that topic, is there room in either of your budgets for the softer social services side? Mental health and addiction services, community services, the higher education fund? Mary?
Absolutely. I think that's a shame that those have gone after and been targeted for cuts. I do not want to harm anybody who's vulnerable or disenfranchised by this government. But come on, we've had 40 years of Democratic rule, and look where we've gone, at the bottom of every list in terms of financials. I mean, just it's horrible. 30,000 people a year leave, and that's not fiction. That's truth. So I hate to see services cut. In fact, that's not what needs to be cut. But when you have benefits that are not sustainable, and nobody wants to talk about that because they're union benefits and they vote Democrat. I do not hold the party line. I don't believe that we're going to be able to eliminate the income tax. I'm not even proposing that. I would start with the corporate tax. We're one of the highest, again. And if you grow the economy, you will increase revenues. That's what I think is the right thing to do. If you increase revenues through growing the economy, you're going to get more jobs, you're going to get more companies, you're going to get more revitalization in your cities that will attract millennials. You will keep the seniors here, who are the best constituent to have as a resident. They're not using the school systems. They've contributed, they've done their job, and we want them here. We're chasing people away the way things are going, and it's just, spiral. It's out of control. And you've got to address the elephant in the room. You really do. And I want to see these people get their benefits, but right now, there's no way that they're going to get them. We're insolvent.
Jillian.
So our state is in financial trouble, but it is the result of years of fiscal mismanagement at both the hands of Democrats and Republicans. I'd like to see one way that I think we can still support the soft services, as you called them. An example would be services for adults with disabilities. So when I go door to door in our community, I hear time and again that families are struggling who have adult children with disabilities, because currently there is this incredibly long waiting list, and families are just struggling to be able to take care of their children. And so at the state level currently, there are two parallel systems running. There are services being offered to that population through the state, and then there are services being offered through nonprofit. If we were to move all of those services to nonprofit, not only could we cut spending here in the state, the services are quality, and we'd actually be able to reduce the waiting list. So that's one way. Another is connecting our institutions of higher ed to business as a way to ensure that we can invest in our state going forward, and that students are getting the skill development they need to be able to support industry in this state. And there are schools in our state who are doing that, and so we could certainly model off of what's being done.
Thank you. Any other comments? You.
Well, I think it's fine to blame the Republicans. This is not the blame game, right? I mean, there's enough blame to go around for everybody. But let's be honest about who controlled the House and the Senate for the past 40 years. It was the Democrats. And yes, we did have Republican governors from time to time, but they can't do anything if they don't have a majority in either house. So let's just acknowledge that and move forward. But I think wasting time on blaming is not accomplishing anything. Let's move forward and figure out what the best way to do that. Now, in terms of the economy, there's a couple other things that we can work on. So everybody goes draconian tax, breaks that will benefit the rich. No, I said corporate, I said inheritance to keep seniors here, and possibly the gift tax. I haven't even addressed personal income tax yet. But I will say that we are taxed to death. And tolls, what do you think tolls are going to cost the average commuter in Connecticut if we put them up? $3,000 to $4,000. To me, that's a lot of money. And the rising economy will raise the poor to the middle class. We want to grow the middle class. That's the best way to solve problems, is to have a really healthy, vibrant, big middle class. And that's what I will be focused on.
Okay, let's move on. We have 169 towns. Each town has its own public works, tax collection, library, health services, school system, and more. Do you think Connecticut's towns and cities should engage in more cost-sharing policies? There was a proposal to condition state municipal aid according to how towns cooperated with each other. Would you support such a measure? This goes to Jillian.
I would support such a measure. I think, again, our state is in a budget mess, and any way that we can ensure efficiencies that don't jeopardize the services here in the town of West Hartford is a priority. Again, when I'm out door knocking, there are roads in this community where half the street is Bloomfield, for example, and half the street is West Hartford. And so on one day, garbage is being picked up for Bloomfield. The next day, it's being picked up for West Hartford. On our other side of town, we have a road where part of the road is West Hartford, then it becomes Farmington, West Hartford again, and actually the snow plows will lift their plow to not clean the street. So there are ways that we can definitely share services with our surrounding towns and be able to save for services that are vital.
Clearly, regionalism means a lot of different things to different people. And you can have the grand scheme where it means combining towns, combining schools, combining fire departments. That is not something that I would like to see, at least not now. You're just combining one fiscal mess with another, and you're going to get an even bigger one. So I think shared services is something that I've done before. I've done it many times in companies. We had 3 mail rooms for 3 different life insurance businesses. We put them together. That's something that I would be absolutely an advocate of. I also think, though, that before we even approach that, there's waste and fraud all over our state. Just one example, which is a ludicrous one, but a professor at UConn who hadn't been in the classroom for 9 months was being paid, and it ended up, sorry to say, but his wife had murdered him. So we don't even stop paychecks when they're supposed to be stopped. That's just one example. But I would go after the waste in our own system. I would wring it out. I would try to do shared services within our own government, and then we can talk about regionalization on a larger platform.
Any rebuttal? Okay. You both mentioned roads and tolls, so let's move on to transportation. The 2 parties have proposed different strategies for dealing with Connecticut's transportation issues. What model would you choose? How are we going to fund our transportation? That's Mary's question.
Yeah, terrific. Thank you. Well, clearly we had a plan. It just wasn't followed. Our gas taxes, which are the highest in the country also, were supposed to go into the transportation fund. And what happened? It was raided. So I think the money's there. We just have to make sure that if we're going to designate it towards something, we keep it that way. Tolls, okay, look, guys, when you have nothing to compete on right now, we're at the bottom of every list. We're not competitive. New England is flying by us. Rhode Island's doing well. Massachusetts, the other states are doing extremely well. We are not, okay? Metro New York and even the suburbs of New York are doing fine. So I would say our one competitive advantage, it sounds funny, but it's we don't have tolls. So why do we want to take that away when we should be getting the money from the gas tax? That's what we need to do.
Jillian.
So Connecticut residents already pay tolls. Anytime we head to New York or up to Massachusetts, we have to pay a toll. And so I think it's about time that our neighbors give us some revenue. So I do support tolls. I support electronic tolls where there would be a reduced price for residents of Connecticut. And I support linking the revenue that we have from those tolls directly to transportation infrastructure. It's something that's been said in the past and hasn't been done, but that's why we need to elect new leaders who will actually fight to ensure that those dollars go where they're intended to go. In terms of the gas tax, if we are to move Connecticut forward with our environmental goals, we're going to see a lot more energy efficient cars, and so we're going to see a reduce in that gas tax. And so we do need to ensure that we have a different revenue source to support our transportation infrastructure.
Thank you. Mary, rebuttal?
I'll just coming back to, I do not want to see taxes on the middle class increased or seniors anymore. And to me, $3,000 or $4,000 extra every year for tolls to travel our roads for the average person is too much without a give someplace else.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to school funding. Most school funding comes from towns, and most towns' funding comes from property taxes, which creates a disadvantage for towns or cities with less property. To ease the reliance on property tax, would you support or oppose the right of a town to impose its own additional tax, such as a sales tax, restaurant tax, or hotel tax? Please explain why. I believe this question goes to Mary.
Maybe I wasn't clear earlier. I would not advocate any additional tax anywhere on a state that, like Connecticut, which is taxed to death. So no, I would not advocate for that. I do think we can do different things with funding. Look, we have an ECS formula, and it changes every year, and it's never been adhered to. Why do we have it if we're not going to pay attention to it? So I would streamline that. I would come up with some consistency and fairness, and I would apply it consistently across, and maybe that would give an incentive for the underperforming schools to do better. Throwing more money at schools is not making them any better. That's not the solution. We have to be more creative. We have to be more innovative. We have to be more proactive and get out in front of this. But no, more taxes and spending more money is not the answer. I would not be for that.
Jillian.
So my husband and I moved to West Hartford because of the amazing schools. Actually, one of the things Mary and I have in common is that both of our children attend Morley Elementary School, which is a fantastic public education here in our community. And so I want to do everything I can to support our public education here in the town of West Hartford. It's a major driver of people moving to our community. And so I think before we enact any additional tax increases at the local level, there are many things we could do at the state level to clean up the spending. And so I mentioned earlier this evening that there are 10 different funding streams for public education, and so we could consolidate those, which would save dollars. If we were to actually implement an ECS formula that reflects modern times, West Hartford would actually benefit because our community has changed so dramatically over the last 10 years. We're actually quite a good representation of the state at large. We have very high highs and very low lows, and right now we are not getting the funding we should get.
Just really quickly, I don't want anyone misunderstanding. I'm a complete education advocate. My mother is a retired special ed teacher. My sister's teachers. And I will say that it was probably the family business. My grandfather was the superintendent of schools. So that's something I firmly believe, and that's the great equalizer along with the booming economy. Education and the economy will get people to the middle class, and that's what I want to support.
Okay, thank you. Any more? Okay. Jillian, the environment. You mentioned the environment once. It seems that the Connecticut environment has been under attack lately from encroaching species. We've got bears, we have ticks, we have mosquitoes, not to mention climate change issues, water issues, air pollution issues. At the same time, the DEEP has had a series of budget cuts. Are we being funded? And are they funded enough to take care of the public health of the state?
So we're fortunate that we live in a state like Connecticut where folks are committed to energy efficiency, and there are goals for the environment and for climate change. But in addition to budget cuts with DEP, we're also facing attacks from my opponent's party, the Republican Party. The Trump administration is relaxing efficiency standards. They're the party that doesn't believe in climate change, and so we need to do more at the state level to protect both cuts from the budget and to protect against attacks from the federal government. And so one of the things I would do if elected is ensure that we restore funds to the Energy Efficiency Fund and the Green Bank, which not only moves Connecticut toward our goals, it also brings jobs and investment into our state.
Thank you.
I guess a couple of things to think about. Trump's not on the ballot. Jillian and I are, so that's irrelevant. Secondly, I'm a conservationist. I've gone against my party. I was a proud member of Save Our Water when Niagara bottling came to town and fought against that tooth and nail. And I'm known by the MDC very well. And we were early adopters of environmental practices with conservation. I remember my dad taking us down to the fire station to throw out our bottles and cans, and we've been doing it ever since. So I would incent people to use solar and other things that would conserve the environment.
Okay, thank you. Jillian, any rebuttal?
So Trump isn't on the ballot, but the Trump administration's policies certainly are going to impact us here in Connecticut, and the role of the state legislator is to enact state policies that can protect the people of Connecticut from the federal policies. You say that you will stand up against your party, but just this last weekend, you were interviewed and spoke to the fact that you haven't seen anything discriminatory come out of this president's administration when talking about the LGBTQ community. And I don't know what you've been watching, because so many discriminatory policies have been coming out of that administration. And so I want to ensure that we have someone for the 18th district who will stand up to their party and ensure that the democratic values that this community stands by are protected.
Thank you.
May I?
Yes.
That's a falsehood. There's an article that rebutted Beth Kerrigan's, a fellow counselor's, attack on me. That was not a supportive view. That was an attack on Mary Fay. Not fair, not right. She had a lot of inaccuracies in there. First of all, I live this life. You can talk about it all you want. I live it. And I have crashed the glass ceiling for women when you were in grade school and for gay women, okay? So don't talk to me about whether I respect gay rights or not. I will fight for them tooth and nail, like my predecessors have, like I still fight for women, and like I will fight for every disenfranchised group that there is. That I will not accept.
Okay. Any further comments? Okay. We have an imbalance of time. Jillian has a few minutes left. But 2:24, okay. I think we're going to move to closing statements. We'll allow a little extra time for closing statements. I can't ask a one-sided question. We need a rebuttal. We're going to move to 2 minutes for each of the closing statements, and we can balance the time out there. Mary, you were first as the lottery went.
Thank you very much. You can tell I'm very passionate about this. I'm extremely passionate about rescuing Connecticut. I'm really passionate about making opportunities happen for everybody. And I really believe the true issue with this state is the economy. Fixing all this other stuff is just noise. I mean, there's a lot of important issues, but the economy, if we can't get that right, nothing else really matters. And I am concerned about the future. I mean, I'm concerned about my 8-year-old daughter here. I am concerned about people who are living in poverty. I am concerned about retirees. I am concerned about, my own parents being able to stay in the state and myself being able to stay in this state. It's very, very challenging time, and we need to fix that before we can really do anything. It's the number one priority. I firmly believe that I will lead from the center. I was a Democrat, so I understand their values, and I hold many of them still. But I do think this is an election about experience. And I have the experience, I have the credibility, I have the track record to do all things with finances and the economy. I'm proven to be a moderate. I always have been. I've gone against my own party. And I really believe that I will govern for results. That is what matters. Are you going to move the ball forward? Are you going to advance all the things that are important to Connecticut, the environment, our education? But they all need money. So it really starts with the economy. And I believe growing the economy is going to increase revenues. I'm not talking about what they want to paint us as giving tax breaks to the rich. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about getting companies and industry moving forward so people have opportunities to work. And there's more than just money that you get when you have a good job. There's dignity with a job. There's pride with a job. And I think we need more of that, and to really change the culture that people want to work, have opportunities to work, and can benefit their own families and take care of each other.
Thank you. Jillian, your closing statement. We'll give Jillian a little extra time since she didn't use up all her question time. Give her another minute. You would? Okay.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters and West Hartford Community Television for hosting this debate. It's a wonderful opportunity to discuss the issues of importance to our community and to our state. For the last 15 years, I've worked for different nonprofits working on public policy up at the state capitol. One of my first jobs out of college after serving as a child advocate was as a legislative aide and committee clerk for the Appropriations Committee. I've worked in and around the Connecticut General Assembly for a very long time now, and so I understand how that building works and how it doesn't work. And so I want to bring my skills, both having worked at the legislature and having taught political advocacy to students at the University of Connecticut School of Social Work, to my role as state legislator. First and foremost, like I said, we need to reduce West Hartford's property taxes. Walking around this community, regardless of age, economic background, individuals are struggling. They love this community, but they are struggling to live here as our property taxes continue to increase. And so any new revenue that comes into the state has to go to pay off our debt. Additionally, we have to find those efficiencies at both the state and local level. And I think it is incredibly important that we invest in Connecticut's future. Oftentimes that gets lost in the discussion, but we have to invest in our state. And again, that's by investing in policies like paid family and medical leave, investing in our transportation infrastructure, and of course, investing in our quality public education. These are trying times for our state and for our country, and we need to elect leaders who prioritize policies over politics. I have made it clear to voters in this community that I am not afraid to challenge my party if I disagree, and I don't think the same can be said for my opponent. She claims to be purple, but she is an apologist for Donald Trump. She calls Joe Markley, the GOP candidate for lieutenant governor, a man of integrity. This is a man, he's the only state senator to vote against pay equity, to vote against a ban on bump stocks, and to vote against a bill regarding sexual consent. We are fully capable of discussing both the state budget and social issues, and we have to. And I don't think it's noise. These are policies that impact people's lives. And so we need to elect leaders who can have a conversation about the state budget while also talking about social issues. This election is an opportunity to improve Connecticut's economic future and to set our state in a new direction. This election is also an important statement about what we value as a state and as a people. And Connecticut has the power to protect and defend against the Trump administration and their discriminatory policies towards women, immigrants, African Americans, and LGBTQ community. I love West Hartford. I love living here with my family. I love the parks, the sidewalks, and I'd be honored to be your state representative. I'll continue door knocking, hosting town halls, and being very active on social media because I think the role of a state legislator is to listen to the residents and reflect their needs at the Capitol. Please vote on November 6th. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to you both. We'll talk. Thank you to the candidates, to the timers, and to the West Hartford Community TV staff for making this event possible. We hope this debate assists you, the voting public, when you go to the polls for the midterm elections for the state and federal offices on Tuesday, November 6th, to exercise your right and privilege to vote. Thank you.